Hey guys, it's Saga, and in this video, I'm going to put the cameras on this POCO F3 GT up against the ones on the Mi 11X. Both these phones come with 3 cameras on their back, and they are priced very close to each other. For their main cameras, POCO F3 GT gets a 64 megapixel Omnivision sensor, whereas the Mi 11X gets a 48 megapixel Sony sensor. Omnivision sensors haven't been that great in the past, so it will be nice to see how far they have come. POCO is also backed up by the ISP on the Dimensity 1200 processor, whereas the Mi 11X is backed by the image signal processing on the Snapdragon 870 processor. So this is going to be an interesting comparison on many levels. We have over 150 image and video samples from both these phones to look at, so to keep this video from getting any longer than it already is, instead of walking you through all the camera specs, I will just leave them on this slide. You can pause the video and go through them if you want. Now if you are new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. It is free and takes less than 10 seconds of your time, but it goes a long way in helping my channel grow. In most of my videos, I start by comparing the image samples, but this time let us start by checking out the video samples first. Main cameras on both these phones can shoot at a maximum resolution of 4K at 30 FPS. None of them have optical image stabilization, but these videos are electronically stabilized. I feel Mi 11X's videos are slightly smoother, whereas you can see a few jitters in POCO F3's 4K video. This video was shot in overcast conditions, so there is some noise from both the phones. POCO's video is noticeably brighter and shows much better colors, whereas the Mi 11X is crushing most of the shadows. 1080p 30fps videos are also electronically stabilized from both the phones, but these videos have noticeably less details in them, so both of them try to make up for it by adding artificial sharpening, which makes the overall video look processed. Since the 4K 30fps videos come out good from both, I took all my videos in that resolution. Here's a slow motion video sample. Mi 11X can shoot 240fps slow motion video with the main camera, and the POCO F3 GT can only shoot 120fps slow motion videos at 1080p resolution. Both of them can do even higher frame rate, but the resolution has to be dropped down to 720p, and those videos just don't look good. When you're shooting slow motion videos, make sure to shoot them in plenty of light, preferably in bright sun, or else you will see a lot of grain or noise in your videos. Now coming to the images. Let us start with this beautiful shot. Both of them have captured a lot of details, but the colors appear to be a bit better from the POCO F3 GT. I think it is also handling the brighter parts of the image better than the Mi 11X. POCO made this image look much better, whereas the Mi 11X is crushing the details in the shadows. But as we zoom in, you can see that POCO's image has a lot of added sharpness, whereas one from the Mi 11X looks a bit less processed and slightly more natural. Again in this shot, we see the POCO F3 GT handle the colors, shadows and exposure in a much better way, but it also added a lot of noise to the shot. Mi 11X did not capture very good colors, and it also made the shadows appear too dark, but its image has much less noise. In overcast lighting conditions, both of them perform in a different way. Mi 11X tries to brighten the shot, whereas POCO F3 GT adds a lot of contrast in these shots, which makes some of them look more detailed, whereas ones from the Mi 11X look a bit flat. Now we know that POCO F3 adds sharpness to its images and the Mi 11X doesn't. And when we zoom in, that extra bit of sharpness and added contrast makes POCO's images look very busy or cluttered, whereas the one from the Mi 11X, while having a bit less details, still looks natural. POCO F3 GT also adds a bit of saturation to its images, while ones from the Mi 11X are just looking pale in comparison. Neither are capturing colors as they were in real life, but I would say POCO's colors are still closer to how the scene looked in real life. While looking at the Mi 11X's images side by side with the ones from the POCO F3 GT, there appears to be a slight yellow and green tint in some of the Mi 11X's shots. When I only looked at the Mi 11X's colors for its camera review, or even when you guys look at these images alone, the colors seem to be natural and good. Not too saturated, but good. But as soon as I start comparing it with the images from the POCO F3 GT, I feel colors look much better in POCO's images. They are brighter and a bit more saturated, and that makes the images more lively. As I always say, everyone perceives color in a different way, and which of these colors you like will actually depend on your personal preference. As much as I prefer natural looking colors, I always add a bit of saturation to the shots which I am sharing with someone, or to the ones that I share on social media platforms. So I'm sure some people will like and appreciate a bit saturated colors from the POCO F3 GT. Coming to the HDR shots, we got a taste of the dynamic range on both these phones in the first image that we saw. Here we have a bright sun behind the trees, and both the phones have made the image look fairly good. But if we look closer, POCO F3 GT has not only captured better colors, but it also brought up more details from the shadows and at the same time preserved more details in the brighter parts of the image as well. We see the same thing in this shot. POCO brought up more details from the shadows and made the colors look good. We saw this in Mi 11X's dedicated camera review as well, that Xiaomi needs to work a lot on improving the dynamic range of this phone. It can either bring up details in the shadows and overexpose the brighter parts, or preserve the brighter parts and completely ignore the darker shadows. Even after 2 months of updates, Xiaomi hasn't been able to fix this. I think it is safe to say that POCO F3 GT has much better dynamic range of these two. Coming to the close-up shots. Which phone sets the focus faster and accurately on the subject matters a lot while taking these kind of shots. You just can't wait for the phone to hunt for focus in these situations. While both these phones are very fast at setting the focus on a nearby object, I feel the Mi 11X is a hair faster than the POCO F3 GT. Once the focus is set, subject is sharp and detailed in both the shots, and because of them having a very wide aperture, the background in these shots get a very nice optical blur. These are not portrait shots, so the blur that you see in the background is all optical. Both phones get a macro lens if you want to get even closer to your subject, but the Mi 11X gets a 5 megapixel sensor and a super macro or 2x lens, whereas the POCO F3 GT gets just a 2 megapixel camera and it can't even get that close to the subject. When comparing these images side by side, I doubt that we can even call POCO's camera as a macro camera. Just look at how good these macro shots look from the Mi 11X. If you are into macro photography, Mi 11X should be your obvious choice. All the images that we saw from the main cameras were 16 megapixel ones from the POCO F3 GT and 12 megapixel ones from the Mi 11X. But you can switch to the 48 and 64 megapixel cameras on the Mi 11X and POCO F3 GT respectively. When I zoom in 6 to 7 times, you can see that the 64 megapixel images from the POCO F3 GT has slightly more details in them. You really can't see the difference between the normal and high resolution shots unless you zoom way in. And those shots also take 3 to 4 times more storage space, so for most of the shots, I suggest most people to stick to the default resolution. You can switch to the high resolution shots if you want to capture some landscapes or if you plan on cropping the images later on. This is how the normal lens on both these phones capture the scene, but there were a lot more details around which I also wanted to get in the shot, but I just did not have any space to move back. In these conditions, the wide lens comes in very handy because they will let you capture a much wider scene without having to move back. In some other cases, these wide lenses also let you capture a completely different perspective of the same scene. Now these are just 8 megapixel shots, so there are not enough details in them. Ones from the POCO F3 GT even seem to be foggy at times. These wide lenses also don't have the best color reproduction or dynamic range, so we might see a lot of contrast in these images in situations like these. I don't like the wide lens on either of these phones, so I didn't take any more wide shots with these lenses. But if I had to choose one of them, I would say the one on the Mi 11X is a bit sharper. There is also a 2x option on the viewfinder, but neither of these phones have dedicated telephoto lenses, so these 2x shots are not lossless. They are just cropped in and enhanced images from the main camera. Coming to the portrait shots, both of them do a good job of separating the subject from its background. POCO is adding a lot of sharpness to the subjects in these conditions, which makes its portrait shots look really weird, and I don't really like the look of it. It is also making the skin tones appear reddish and adding a lot of contrast in these images. Mi 11X is also not showing accurate colors, but the subject is at least looking better in its portrait shots. I can always try and edit the green tint that is there in the Mi 11X's portrait shots, but I can't really do anything to make the oversharp portrait shots from the POCO F3 GT look good. So for portraits of humans, I would say the Mi 11X did a better job. Even while taking portraits of objects, we see POCO adding much more contrast to its shots, which looks very unnatural. I mean, this is what I feel. Some might like the contrasty look and might even prefer the portrait shots from the POCO F3 GT, and that is completely fine. Everyone likes to have a specific look and feel to the images. For portrait shots, I personally don't like the look of POCO F3 GT's images. What do you guys feel? Let me know in the comments. With that, let us move on to the indoors, artificial and lower lighting images. None of these phones have OIS to help the shutter capture more light, so both of them have to rely on the aperture to provide more light on the sensor, and then the image processing that goes in the background decides how you should process the images for any given lighting conditions. The Mi 11X chose to show us this scene how it actually looked in real life, so its image is a bit darker. POCO F3 GT thought that the scene is a bit too dark, so it decided to brighten it up, which looks good. But that has also made it add a lot of noise in this image. POCO also tries to make the shot appear much warmer than it is in real life. This lamp was a bit warm, but you can see its actual color in Mi 11X's image. It was not as warm as POCO is trying to show it. Same with this shot. This lobby has warm lights, but not as warm as you can see in POCO F3 GT's image. Now the size of sensor on both these phones is exactly same, but Mi 11X has less pixels on the same size, so each individual pixel is slightly bigger on its camera, and this means it should have captured more light and slightly more details, but that is not the case. POCO's images are more detailed and brighter of the two. I think the image processor on this Mi 11X is not using all the data that the sensor is capturing in an efficient way. This shot is brighter from the Mi 11X, but it has also captured a lot of noise, so the performance is not consistent. POCO F3 GT is consistently capturing similar images in these conditions, and if we zoom in, we also see that its images are showing slightly more details than the Mi 11X. Night mode doesn't make that big of a difference on either of these phones. Images do have a bit more light in them, but any of the details are barely being preserved by either of the phones. If there is enough ambient light around, Mi 11X's night mode shots have more light in them. Night mode shots take more time to capture, so you need to hold the phone steady for 3 to 4 seconds. If you're not careful, your shots will turn out to be blurry like these ones. If you have people in the shot, you will also have to ask them to stay steady for 3 to 4 seconds, or else they will be blurred out as well. So if we look at it, both can take somewhat usable images if there is plenty of ambient light around, but neither one would be my first choice for low light photography. That brings us to the front facing cameras. Mi 11X has a high resolution selfie camera, but selfies from the POCO F3 GT seem to be a bit sharper. Well, that is because the sharpness that it applies to these shots. It might look better in some of the shots, but for most of the shots, I like the natural look in the selfies from the Mi 11X. But then again, I don't take a lot of selfies, so I really can't tell which one might be better for someone who takes a lot of them. If you are someone who takes a lot of selfies, let me know in the comments which of these two do you think takes better selfies. The edge detection is almost similar on both, but again, portrait selfies are looking much natural from the Mi 11X. If you want natural looking selfies from the POCO F3 GT, you might have to turn on the beauty mode and have it set to a lower setting, because without it, POCO's portrait selfies just look too sharp. So we have seen close to 150 image and video samples from both these phones, and I'm really happy to see that the Omnivision image sensor on the POCO F3 GT has come a long way and can go head to head with the ones from Sony. For videos, both of them are pretty neck to neck, but I would say videos from the Mi 11X look slightly better to me, and if you're considering getting one of these phones with the intention of shooting vlogs with its rear camera, I would say go with the Mi 11X. For images, we saw POCO F3 GT take better images in most daytime scenarios, but for capturing humans, I would say Mi 11X does a slightly better job. It also has a better wide camera, and its macro camera is miles ahead of the one on the POCO F3 GT. For low light, neither one is great, but I would say POCO F3 GT is a bit more consistent than the Mi 11X when the light goes down. And for selfies, I would again say that the Mi 11X did a better job. So these are all the things that each of these phones are good at. Look at them and try to figure out which of these fits your photography style the best and go with it. Which one you decide to get, let us know in the comments. Your decision might help someone else in their decision making process. That is it for this camera comparison video. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.